Police in Moscow, Idaho worked their way through the holiday, digging their way through email, photo, and phone tips, hoping to spot even a tiny clue that might point them toward who killed University of Idaho students in November. Now, Ben Mogan, the father of victim Madison Mogan, says he's confident that the murderer will be found and brought to justice. Mogan spoke with the newspaper out in Washington State, saying that there's just too much information available, like DNA and videos, for someone to just get away. Madison Mogan, her best friend Kaylee Gonsalves, their roommate Zana Kernodle, and Zana's boyfriend Ethan Chapin were stabbed to death inside an off-campus home on November 13th. So far, no suspects have been publicly identified, and police have not found the murder weapon. But just weeks before her death, Kaylee Gonsalves and her boyfriend Jack Decor ended their 5-year relationship. Now, because of that, many online sleuths have pointed the finger at him for the quadruple murder. Decor's aunt spoke to the New York Post, saying that the split was amicable. Decor was investigated, but Moscow police say he was cleared. Kaylee's family has also shown its support for Decor, saying he's not involved. But one internet investigator is in some very serious hot water after connecting a University of Idaho professor to the brutal killings. Ashley Gillard posted multiple TikTok videos saying Professor Rebecca Schofield was the perpetrator. Gillard says she solves crimes online through psychic readings. She claims Schofield was in a relationship with one of the victims, and when that victim wanted to take a break, Schofield plotted the murder. Schofield, of course, wanted Gillard to take the videos down, and when she didn't, Schofield sued. Schofield says not only did she not know any of the victims or have them in her classes, but she and her husband were in Oregon on November 13th. Gillard, who lives in Texas, has continued to post about Schofield, saying she's looking forward to seeing her in court. Brian, short of the suspect's identity, what do you think could help break this case open now?
Well, I'm also using my psychic reading of touching my law and crime cup, but that aside, I'm thinking it's the murder weapon. In most criminal cases, when you find the murder weapon, especially in a case like this where you hear the stab wounds are so unique, that's the connective tissue between the actual killing of the victims and that of the killer. If we can find the weapon, know its uniqueness, understand where it may be, how it was used, maybe how it was purchased, that would give us a lot more. The DNA is helpful, the video is helpful, but I'm looking for that murder weapon. I think that's going to really crack this case open.
So, Terry, I mentioned that social media, they're targeting the ex-boyfriend of Kaylee Gonsalves as the possible murderer. He was already cleared by police, but did authorities clear him too quickly?
Listen, I definitely think they're clearing everybody way too quickly. I don't think that the former boyfriend, Jack, is the suspect, but still, they have to dig deep. They keep clearing everyone. They cleared the 2 roommates very quickly, almost immediately. They cleared everyone who might have been in that white car. They cleared almost everyone that they've talked to so far, and what they need to do, in my opinion, is stop clearing everybody. You have to dig deep, even if there is an alibi. Then what if somebody set it up? You dig deeper than just saying, okay, where were you the day of? Now, I don't know what their questioning was, but I do think that they are looking at all of these various suspects and they basically are just wiping them off their list. And I think that's part of the problem. I think that's why it's taking so long. I think they need to go into each of those suspects. What were they doing that day? What phone records? All of it, just to make sure before they clear these people that they're actually someone to clear.
But maybe they did that, Terry. And if they didn't clear them and say, don't look that way, what would online sleuths be doing at that point, right? And so it's a hard game to play right now, but I can kind of understand where they're coming from as well. Well, a former child star has pleaded not guilty to assault charges after allegedly threatening a relative with a hammer and knife. Orlando Brown was best known for the show That's So Raven on Disney Channel. The family member Brown was staying with in Ohio told police that he thought the 35-year-old was going to assault him. He's charged with aggravated menacing and he's being held on $25,000 bond. Well, another That's So Raven child star is also facing legal trouble. Kyle Massey is awaiting a court date after allegedly sending a sexually explicit video to a young girl. The 13-year-old sued Massey for $1.5 million, claiming he sent her explicit videos, photos, and messages through Snapchat in 2018 and 2019. Massey has denied the allegations. The Bail Project, an organization that helped bail people out of jail, is shutting down its Las Vegas office. And one of the men that they helped release shot someone. That's right. The Bail Project was founded in 2017, and it's backed by celebrities like Richard Branson, John Legend, and Danny Glover. The organization says it has helped more than 7,000 people get the money they need to get out of jail. Advocates argue that bail is inherently discriminatory because if you take 2 people who committed the same crime, but one doesn't have cash to put up, that person stays behind bars before their trial. But last year, the Bail Project posted a $3,000 bail for Rashawn Gaston Anderson. And less than a week later, he shot a waiter 7 times during an attempted burglary. Now, he took a plea deal, getting 7 to 18 years in prison, but the victim sued the Bail Project. And it turns out the Bail Project had another big problem because it was reportedly not registered with the state.
There's a question as to whether or not the fact that the technicality of this particular organization not being registered in Nevada the way that they needed to be, like other bail companies, would end up making a difference, okay? There would be some particular penalty probably related to them operating as a bail provider when they weren't supposed to, just like every other company. If I'm Joe's Bail Bonds, I have to have certain licensures, et cetera. And apparently this organization did not check that box, but it would still be a very, very long stretch, I would believe, for them to be liable for what this individual ends up doing when they were released pursuant to a valid bail amount.
Terry, you think this bail project should have been shut down? I mean, what else could they have done to protect themselves from liability here?
Well, this particular office had to shut down, at least for the time being, because they weren't registered. But I think that at the end of the day, I agree. I don't think that they're going to lose as far as that case is concerned, because it is not their responsibility. They don't have that duty owed. They need to have their licenses, but they don't have to guarantee that anyone they let out of jail based on the fact that they paid is not going to commit another crime. I do think that the judge here in this case should have looked at the background of this individual, and if there was criminal behind that, violent, act, then I think he shouldn't have been let out. Now, having said all that, should the company have done due diligence? Yes. For them to have a reputation that they are helping people, they need to make sure the people they help deserve getting out of jail. So here, I think they didn't pick the right person, but they're not liable for it.
So, Brian, you had mentioned that Gaston Anderson's bail of $3,000 actually tells us a lot about the case. How is that?
Exactly. So judges are setting bail based on 2 things, more than 2 things actually. The crime, their history, and every other state except New York does this thing where they actually set bail based on their potential danger. When you hear a $3,000 bail, that means the judge has already done their due diligence and doesn't think this person is a danger to society. Whether it be someone paying $3,000 or you going to a bonds person where you get to pay 15% of that. So what if it's $3,000, you pay $450, and you got to put up the other $2,550 in collateral. That's a small amount when you're thinking about bond, and that's reflective of what the evidence was against him. This isn't a bail bonds person issue. This isn't a celebrity bail project issue. If anything, it's the judge who set a low bail.
Put the impetus on the judge. Great quick math there, Brian. I would have been lost, so I'm glad you handled that.
I'm good with bond. I'm good with bond.
Lawyers, we're not good with numbers. What can I say? Well, a brand new documentary is going to chronicle the end of a celebrity relationship that dominated the entertainment world. Former NBA star Lamar Odom is now teaming up with TMZ to talk about his divorce from, you guessed it, Khloe Kardashian.
You kind of backslid into drugs during this time.
Yeah, drugs was that was my girlfriend. I had a wife and cocaine.
She stood by you.
Yeah, she did. The things that y'all think y'all know is crazy, but the stories that y'all don't know is like really crazy.
The couple's rocky marriage frequently made headlines more than 5 years ago, with Odom's drug and sex addiction at the forefront. Odom was arrested in 2013 for a DUI and had a near-fatal overdose at a brothel 2 years later. He also found himself at the center of several affairs. The documentary, titled Sex, Drugs, and Kardashians, aims to tell Odom's side of the story from rock bottom to redemption, and it premieres on Monday. Meanwhile, part of Tiger King Joe Exotic's redemption plan is dead in the water. A federal appeals court has rejected his request for a new sentence. The former Oklahoma zookeeper and Netflix star is currently serving 21 years in prison after he was convicted in 2019 of 2 murder-for-hire plots against his rival animal rights activist Carol Baskin. Now, defense attorneys argued that imposing consecutive prison terms violates double jeopardy, but the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed, since the murder-for-hires charges involve distinct plots. While Exotic's sentence will remain the same, his request for a new trial altogether is pending. And we have an update for you on Jen Shah, reality TV star from The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We now know she could face a decade in prison for wire fraud. The 49-year-old pleaded guilty to the charge in July, a week before her scheduled trial. Now, Shah agreed to forfeit and pay restitution in the millions after the U.S. Attorney's Office accused her of laundering money through the sale of lead lists. Those lists included innocent people who became scam targets in Shah's alleged telemarketing scheme. Shah's team is requesting a 3-year prison term, citing her lack of criminal history and lack of direct involvement in the scheme. Her sentencing is scheduled for next